The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So, today is New Year's Day. Happy New Year to all of us. It's also the festival of Maitreya, which is a nice coincidence, as it were. And it happened to be Reverend Master Jiyu's birthday, her 98th birthday. She was born on January the 1st, 1924. So, we think of all these things. Maitreya, the Buddha that is to come. And his name, Maitreya, comes from the word Maitri, which means loving kindness or benevolence. So he's often referred to as the benevolent one. And this depiction of him is sort of chubby and smiling with his sack. He's there to help beings who are in need. His sack's full of things for people, poor people, hungry people, people in need. And he gives them to people as he goes around. So this loving kindness is a very practical thing. I really like that image. Well, this loving kindness is not an emotional kind of a thing. It's not based on whether we like a person or we don't like them. It's nothing to do with that. It's much more general. But it's not a kind of cool, impersonal thing either. It's not sort of like dispassionate, sounds sort of unfeeling, but it's not like that, actually. There's a warmth, there's a human thing, it's loving kindness, you know. The loving human warmth and the kindness that is its expression. And it goes beyond our likes and dislikes of anybody. It's just something in general. And we all actually experience this and we all practice it. I mean, just do a good deed for somebody, even somebody we don't really like that much. That doesn't matter. Sometimes, you know, there may be somebody you don't really get along with. And there's this little warmth sometimes. You just have a nice little warmth connection of the heart with that person sometimes. And, you know, that's loving kindness. And it's not something we either have or we don't have. We nourish loving kindness. It's something that comes through us, like wisdom, you know, compassion. It's not our personal possession. We don't want to think, well, I'm an angry, hurt person, and I feel cut off from everybody and I don't have any loving kindness. That doesn't help at all, and it's not true either, because we all actually have loving kindness within us and we can find it, because it's not our own. It comes through us. We just have to open up to it and nourish it. Open up to other beings. Open up to ourselves. And it's also a wonderful antidote to anger and resentment and to loneliness and isolation. That loving kindness is our connection with other beings on a warm human level. As we know, Archbishop Desmond Tutu died recently, and I think his funeral is today. And he was a wonderful example of loving kindness. And he was a very feisty activist in the anti-apartheid movement. But he didn't just love the black people and hate the white people. He wasn't like that at all. He actually just hated injustice and oppression. But the people, you know, he would sometimes criticize the black leaders if they were doing something he didn't think was good. And he'd be grateful for the white leaders if they were doing something good. It wasn't a black and white thing. It was more, be kind, be fair, help those who are in need, help those who are dispossessed and don't have a voice. I saw a nice picture of him clapping when he saw Nelson Mandela and the Prime Minister, Leclerc, I don't know how you pronounce it, the white Prime Minister of South Africa, both being given the Nobel Prize. And there's Archbishop Tutu rubbing his hand and laughing, you know, clapping and overjoyed that both of these people, one black, one white, he didn't care about that, but they were both being given the Nobel Prize for their wonderful work in helping end apartheid, of which, of course, he was a good part. He saw beyond the duality of black and white. He said, we're all the children of God, no matter who we are. the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, it was the thing that he started so people could actually work out the differences. They could do something about the horrible things that had happened on both sides, not just the white people harming the black people. There was both. Not everybody was perfect in this time, but they had a way of actually talking about what had happened and not having horrible civil war, something like that. And he spoke out against oppression in all its forms, as poverty, xenophobia, homophobia. He said, if God doesn't like gay people, well, I don't want to go to his heaven. I'll go to the other place, thank you. His own daughter was, she married another woman and got actually tossed out of her church as a priest because of that. But anyway, he had an interest in that. But Tibet, the Rohingya, all these causes, so many, he would support the underrepresented, the people who are being oppressed. And that was his practice of loving kindness. No matter who was involved, it was the oppression and injustice that he was against, not the human beings. And he was a dear friend of the Dalai Lama, who also was like this. He also was a wonderful example of loving kindness towards everybody, not just towards the Tibetans, to endure the situation in Tibet and not hate those who were oppressing his people, but to do his very best to negotiate for freedom and peace for them in a not angry and bitter way for many, many years. This takes immense patience and kindness, the longer view. And the Dalai Lama talks a lot about our common humanity. We're all just human beings together. When, beyond nationalism, race, religion, any of that. Talks about it all the time. Patience. This is another aspect of loving kindness, the patience of Desmond Tutu dealing with that apartheid situation. He might not always have been completely patient. He had a bit of a temper. And the Dalai Lama just patiently trying to do his best in a peaceful way. Patience is an aspect of loving kindness. It's said that Maitreya sits in the Tushita heaven. This is the other aspect of him up there, just sitting there waiting for his time to come to earth as the next Buddha. And he's not just sitting there hanging out, he's perfecting his virtues. He's getting ready. And as we know, perfecting one's virtues is a constant exercise in patience for any of us. So, kindness and patience go together. You can't really have one without the other. When we're patient with somebody, we take time with them to listen to them. We don't just cut them off and rush off because we've got something better to do. But that is not kindness. But when you just wait, spend time with somebody, take time with a person, or just, all the things we do, just simple human kindness, is also patience. Somebody we don't, get along with that well, to be patient with them, to see their good qualities. When we let go of our judgments and our criticisms, both of others and of ourselves, we're practicing kindness and patience. Because impatience is not kindness. When we're impatient with somebody, we're curt, we snap at them, we run away. That's not kindness. Loving kindness. You don't even have to like the person to practice loving kindness, to actually feel loving kindness to another person. When you think about it, most of our likes and dislikes of people come from our past experience. We might have been bitten by that person some time back, but maybe they've changed, or maybe they were just having a bad day. We don't really know why other people are the way they are. We don't even know why we're the way we are, never mind other people. If we knew more about anybody, we couldn't judge them. We would have to have compassion, loving kindness. And if you can bear this in mind, and not leap to judgment when you have a little irritation with somebody, or people we might just have a hard time getting along with, just to think, if I knew more about this person, if I knew what it was like to be them, maybe I could only have kindness towards them. Loving kindness to ourselves. much harder for any of us, for many of us actually, maybe not all of us, but for many of us, it's really hard to practice loving kindness towards ourselves. We're so harsh with ourselves sometimes. We might feel, I can practice loving kindness towards other people, but myself, I don't think so. I've got all these faults, all these things I don't do. You know, we can be so critical, so judgmental, so harsh even towards ourselves. I keep hearing so many people talk about how hard it is to find compassion and to be kind to oneself. You know, it seems to be a thing with many of us, comes up for many of us. However, in fact, we can't really be truly kind to other people without being kind to ourselves. We have to work on being kind to ourselves as well. Otherwise, you can't really have that heart of kindness towards everybody. If we can accept our own faults and shortcomings and not just beat ourselves over the head about them, then we can be kind and generous to another person when they're not perfect. To be patient with our own shortcomings, then we can be patient with other people's. To be generous to ourselves as well as to others in thought, word and deed. The Buddha taught about the Four Divine Abodes, the Brahmaviharas, the great immeasurable practices: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And they're called the Four Immeasurables because they are immeasurable, they're boundless, they're limitless. There's no limit to compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and loving kindness, which is the first of them, the very first one. And the Buddha talks a lot about loving kindness. He taught the Metta Sutra to his monks, which is based, Metta means loving kindness. And he taught this to his monks to help them get along with the devas who were giving problems. It's a whole little story on its own. And to be able to practice loving kindness to all beings helps us, helps beings. And the Metta Sutra, the practice of metta, starts with oneself. We start with offering loving kindness to ourselves, then people close to us, then people further away, and so on. It has to start with ourselves. That's the basis. To practice kindness, loving kindness towards ourselves. So this is something for us all to work with, because it's so easy to just be critical towards ourselves, trying to be the perfect person, you know, perfecting our virtues. I'm going to perfect my virtues. I'm going to be perfect. That's not what it is. It's just working on ourselves, seeing where we need to make changes, but not getting harsh and judgmental about it. And we can all do this. We can do this. We can all practice loving kindness towards ourselves as well as others in our thoughts, words, and deeds. Deeds, to give ourselves time, to give others time, not to just rush about, cutting people off, cutting ourselves off, rushing through our lives, taking time for rest and relaxation, and not letting, allowing that to other people too, not expecting everybody just to force themselves through things, force the issue, get the thing done, do it right away. When we call somebody or we text them and they don't reply in the next 30 seconds, can we wait? We email somebody, we don't get a response for several days. Can we wait? And for ourselves too, not to immediately spring to attention the second somebody wants us for something. Sometimes there's an immediate response required. Sometimes it's just better just to wait. Let me get back to you about that. Let me just take a breath. Just take a minute. Sometimes it's the very best thing not to just rush to respond to something. Speaking kindly to other people. Speaking kindly to ourselves. The meaning of tenderness. To speak kindly to other beings. And their face brightens and their heart is warmed. As Dogen says, it's so nice, their face brightens and their heart is warmed. When we speak kindly to somebody, or we speak kindly about somebody, just kindness, not harshness, not being clipped and abrupt and crabby. Sometimes our ill will comes through our speech, even when we're saying nice words. There's a kind of underlying, Because speaking kindly really, really helps. Speaking kindly to ourselves as well. Do we hear what we say to ourselves, you know? One time, years ago, I was out at the Hermitage and I realized how much I scolded myself. Oh, you idiot, why did you do that? And I thought, would I say that to another person? That's not very nice. And I, you know, listened to this and I thought, I better stop doing this, just berating myself in hideous ways. So we don't want to do that. Thinking kindly of others and of ourselves, that's the basis. If we can think kindly of other beings, then we can speak kindly to them and we can act kindly and towards ourselves too. When you see a thought of ill will arise or irritation about somebody, well, can we think of the person's good qualities? Can we be grateful that they're here, you know? And consider what they might be dealing with in their own lives. As I said, we don't know what they're working. Maybe they don't feel well, maybe something's happened to them, or they have some worry. How do we know? And to think kindly of ourselves, to see our own good qualities, to see that actually we are doing our best. If we're, you know, training in the way of the Buddha, look back, have I changed? Well, of course we have. But what we tend to see is where we still have work to do, which is good, but don't lose sight of the other side of it, that actually we are doing our best. And actually, you know, we've changed. No matter what we may think of our own training, our own practice, or our own faults and shortcomings, actually we have changed. We have the aspiration to do better, the aspiration for the way. And that is stronger than anything, stronger than all our faults, mistakes, and all that. Not constantly judging ourselves for falling short of some impossible, perfect ideal. And we can do this. We can see that judgment and let it go, whether we're judging another person or judging ourselves, to see, oh, look what I'm doing. And then think, well, is it really that bad? You know? Did I do my best and just make a mistake, or something just didn't work out well and now I'm berating myself? Yeah. As I said, today is Reverend Master Jiyu's birthday. And she had a connection with Maitreya, you know, born on the day of Maitreya. The house she lived in, we call the Maitreya House. This little statue, there, I'm going to bring it down to show it more clearly. I keep this by my bed. And when I feel despondent, if I'm going to bed and I feel somewhat despondent, if I look at this little statue, there's no way I could not think, maybe there's more than just my despondency. And it's so beautiful and it's so bright. And, of course, we have this picture of Reverend Master. Which was taken, it's kind of nice, this was taken, they were taking pictures, you're welcome. They were taking pictures of Reverend Master for some formal portrait. There she was on her seat in the meditation hall, you know, and there's this lovely picture of her looking really still, you know. But then they took this picture of her laughing, and of course we like that one much better. So it just, and the similarity between that picture and this little Maitreya is quite startling. So it's not a coincidence either, because both of these beings are joyful. There's a joyfulness that goes beyond the immediate situation. It's a kind of a pervasive joy, a big joy. It sees beyond these immediate circumstances of our lives. Reverend Master Jiyu, I think I've said this many times, when there would be something awful going on, she could sit and have a joke and, you know, have a cup of tea and have a laugh. Or, you know, just in general, just the joyfulness of practice, of training, and doing what needs to be done. That Maitreya shows, that she showed, the joy in life, the joy in faith, actually, faith in that which is beyond all the immediate circumstances of our lives, the sorrows, the difficulties, the worries, the fears, all the stuff that goes on in our world now, you know. It was bad then, it's worse now in some ways, and yet some things are better. We don't tend to see that. But it's just the same old world, same old samsara. And seeing beyond that, with that loving kindness, that wish to help beings, is just so encouraging actually for us. Reverend Master exemplified loving kindness in her life. She wasn't perfect, but I never saw her do anything just out of selfishness. She made mistakes, you know, but she really just always tried to do the best she could. What's the best thing to do here? That's how she lived. That's what she lived by. And that comes out of loving kindness. What's the greater good? What's helpful, actually? Rather than just what do I want. And the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu also show this kind of joy, you know, this joy of actually the religious practice of seeing beyond the immediate conditions of their lives. As we know, they both went through immense suffering, but there's something beyond that. Something much deeper and kinder, whether you call it God or Buddha nature, or whatever, that which is much greater and that sustains us all. And when you look at this little statue, or Reverend Master Jiyu's picture, or you just consider, you know, there's something beyond our immediate little experience, something much greater. No matter what happens, we can nourish our faith in that. It sustains us all, no matter what may come our way, no matter what people may do. Faith also in the innate goodness of human beings, no matter what they may get up to. Everybody has that innate goodness, and you don't always see it, and you don't always hear about it, but it's there. And this practice of loving kindness, allowing it to come through in all the conditions of our lives, towards ourselves, towards all beings. And that's Maitreya's teaching for us today.